The Supreme Court coming down with some important decisions this week already. More to come as we crowd out at 10 o'clock this morning. We should see more, maybe more tomorrow as they round out what's coming down the pipe. Okay, so William, first of all, good to have you here. Let's talk about hate speech in America. What happened at the Supreme Court yesterday?
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me here. Well, in the United States, certain things have never been considered protected speech. So, for example, obscene child pornography, libel, slander, incitement to imminent violence or a true threat of actual violence. Those things have never been considered, speech. But what the left is trying to do is they're trying to take speech that they don't like. And it's so ironic because it used to be the left that used to say, hey, we have to protect free speech. But what the left is trying to do is take speech that they don't like and they want to make it a crime. And that way they can, chill people from, expressing ideas and viewpoints that they disagree with. And what the Supreme Court did yesterday, they said, hey, look, when you try to write these statutes, don't call it a true threat if it's not a true threat. And you have to actually, in the United States, prove intent on behalf of somebody that is supposedly committing a crime. Because what they do is they set these statutes up and they make it a crime, not based on what the speaker is in the heart of the speaker, but supposedly what is in, the impression of the hearer, the listener. And so if the listener says, oh, I'm intimidated or I'm feeling threatened, what the left has been trying to do is say, okay, well, throw the speaker in jail.
I'm confused. How can a listener have intent?
That's a really good question. And even more importantly, how can the speaker know what the listener is going to, intend? And so what you got.
So I don't understand. How, as a listener, you're talking to me, Professor. You're saying, well, I'm sitting in class, you're lecturing. I'm offended, whatever it is. How do I have intent? I'm just listening. And suddenly I'm triggered. I don't understand. Please help me.
You're just listening. You're triggered. Hey, if what I say edifies you, if what I say is wisdom to you, you say, oh, wow, thank you, Professor. I'm going to think about that idea completely differently from now on. Yeah. Well, no felony. If the person sitting in the audience says, though, oh, I'm threatened, my snowflake is melting. Now you've got a felony where the professor's going to jail. And so the Supreme Court put an end to that yesterday, hopefully, by saying,
well, that's good news.
That's really good news because there are laws. This was a law in Colorado. There's laws all over the country that are popping up. Michigan's got one now. And it's my understanding that it stopped it cold when that Supreme Court decision came down yesterday.
To be clear then, just so everybody listening understands, Professor, criminalizing speech, creating hate speech statutes that would make saying offensive things a felony, that just basically went out the window. Much, much, much harder to prove today.
Absolutely. And the court, this was known by most constitutional lawyers around the country, but they didn't want to talk about it because it wasn't consistent with, what the left is trying to do. You can't advance a far crazy political agenda if you can't suppress rational ideas that disagree with it. And so I'm sure we're going to see folks try to come up with new ways of creative ways of keeping people from speaking ideas they disagree with. But at least for today, we're in the United States of America, and we still have the right to, to speak. And, if I get offended all the time by what people say, but, I don't, run down to the local sheriff and say, arrest this guy. He hurt my feelings.
Well, I'm glad. Don't have me cuffed. I mean, you were a federal prosecutor one time. The Constitution and the culture is what the professor and I talk about here weekly on the program.